It's been a while since I've read a story. This one is called In the Mind. It is R-rated, so be prepared. It had been a difficult day at work for the man, so he was looking forward to spending a nice night with his wife and two young children. His son was 7 and his daughter was 4. He thought the world of his children. He loved his wife as well, but there had been arguments lately. As he drove into the driveway of the two-story house, the remote commanded the garage to open, and as it lifted from the ground, an electric shock went up the back of the man's neck. The van was gone. Did she finally succumb to her threat of leaving me? He thought to himself out loud. Yes, the answer came back to him like a thunderbolt strike. He slammed on the brakes as this startled him. He sat there for a few seconds as he came back to life. He parked the car inside the garage and allowed the remote to command the door to close. He knew the answer was yes before he walked into the house. His wife had threatened on numerous occasions that she wanted to leave him. She felt that he wasn't growing in their relationship or in his job. He was in a rut. He knew it. But how was he going to get out of that rut? He didn't have the answer. He was comfortable with his job. As he walked into the house, he felt a great emptiness within. It was as though the house hadn't been lived in for months, even years. Dead silence. He saw a note on the kitchen counter and picked it up. As he read the note, his eyes filled with tears. It read, I can no longer live with you. I know that you have tried to grow in our relationship, but it just isn't happening. I met a man who has filled my desires and needs. I'm taking the children and moving in with him. I'm sorry that things didn't work out for us, but I have to live my life. The man fell to the floor, his legs unable to carry him. As he sat, head between his knees, he began to sob uncontrollably. His memory went back to happier times, back to when they first married. Their first years were happy ones. Sure, there were arguments, but they always made up. Their love-making was intense after these moments. But she's gone, he thought, as his mind brought him back to life. He again wept, his whole body shaking. How did I get into this rut? He asked himself out loud, crying. How did I lose the only woman I ever loved? His memory began to search for answers. Nothing. It was just the same daily routine that caused the rut, he thought to himself. Yes, that was it. He dug the rut little by little over the past years, and by the time he realized that he was in a rut, he had no idea how to get out. Now he had no desire to get out. For what was the purpose? He knew his wife would never come back, and his relationship with his children would soon become distant. How was he going to live without his children? The man slowly got up as the strength came back to his legs. He had no more tears to cry. He knew what he must do. His soul left him hopeless, and as he walked toward the bathroom, he felt the emptiness of the house sweep over him as a cold winter wind. He trembled. The man went into the bathroom. opened the medicine cabinet and took out all the medicine. He then brought it into the kitchen and dumped it on the counter. He took a soup bowl, poured the contents from the medicine containers, and began to grind the pills into a fine powder. When he had finished this, he poured a glass of water and added the powder. He stirred until everything was dissolved in the water. The man went into the front room, sat in his favorite chair, and turned on the television. He drank the deadly brew and waited. When the man awoke, he noticed that the television had been turned off while he had been sleeping. Sleeping? He asked aloud. I must be dead after all those pills I swallowed, he continued aloud. Must have dissolved them into too much water, he heard himself say. What pills? A soft voice asked. The man started, turned his head to see who had uttered that question, and started again when he saw his wife standing at the entrance of the front room. I must be dead. I thought you left me for another man, he said, still in shock. I am so sorry, his wife began to say. I realized while having sex with him last night that I had been selfish and living in self-pity. She began to cry. Will he ever be able to forgive me? His wife asked, cheeks wet. The man got up, walked over to his wife, and put his arms around her. I'm just so happy to see you again, he answered. He kissed her on the lips, the neck, weeping. They were both crying. Where are the children? He asked. Asleep in their beds, was the response. The man kissed his wife again and again on the mouth and on the neck. He caressed her back and buttocks, the latter feeling soft yet firm. I want you so bad, he heard his wife plead. He backed up to look at her. He could see that she regretted the pain she had put him through. He hugged her tight, once again, kissing and caressing. It felt so good to have her in his arms again. It had been so long, forever. He felt himself getting excited. Could she feel it? He wondered. When he backed up to look at her face, it answered in the affirmative. She unbuttoned his shirt and removed it from his body. As she did this, she made sure that his member stayed excited. It was warm down there and getting warmer. The man began to unbutton his wife's blouse, exposing her cleavage. Soon the blouse was lying on the floor. He could see the darkness of her nipples showing through her bra. He felt that his member would explode at any time as he removed the bra. Her breasts were small and firm, the nipples hard with excitement. He put one hand on a breast and felt the warm flesh. He pinched the nipple gently, which made his wife moan wantingly. He held her naked breasts against his chest and kissed her mouth, caressing her bare back. It felt so good. His wife reached down under his pants and massaged his member. He hoped that he would be able to control the eruption. Soon his pants and boxers were off. He was definitely excited. His wife was looking down at it. He enjoyed the way she looked at it. as if it were some alien creature protruding between his legs. She put her hand around it. The man began to suck on his wife's breast, licking her nipples as he did so. He began to unzip her pants ever so slowly, all the while sucking, licking. Since she was only wearing her panties, he stepped back to look at her. "You are so beautiful," he said. He broke down and cried, remembering all the dark days. He got down on his knees as if in worship. It was worship. He worshipped his wife. He raised his hands and began to caress her breasts and nipples, while his face bathed itself in her panties. He could feel the softness of her pelvic hair under her panties. He chewed her private place for a time. She was moving with excitement, and he could feel it against his face. Soon the panties were off, displaying her thick dark hair. He appreciated his wife for not shaving her private area. He liked her pubic hair and the softness of it. He also enjoyed tugging at it with his mouth. With this thought, he began his foreplay, kissing, pulling, sucking. It wasn't much longer when they found themselves on the front room carpet. The man leaned over his wife, who was lying on her back, and kissed her mouth, her neck, her breasts. He could feel her playing with his member. He knew that if he didn't get it in soon, it would be too late. He touched her. She was wet. "Are you ready for a visitor?" he asked. She was moving excitedly. The answer was yes. He entered. He ejaculated again, the nurse said. "Could you clean him up?" she asked the new intern. As the intern cleaned the man, he asked the nurse who he had been walking the rounds with, "What is his story?" The nurse responded, "He was found walking in the middle of the street, masturbating himself and calling for out Sylvia." Her voice quieted. "Nobody seems to know who he is, except that we are sure he was and may still be married, as he wears a wedding ring." The intern finished dressing the man. The nurse continued, "I doubt we will ever find out who he is, as he has been here in the mental ward for 4 years now." She paused again, as if what she was about to say next was important for the intern to know about the man. "He just sits there in his chair, staring out the window and calling out Sylvia. Sometimes he smiles, then begins to masturbate. It's like he is reliving an event over and over again in his mind."